Hey, I'm Tyler and I'm here in Bellingham, Washington for the launch of the all-new Shimano XT and SLX groups. This is the new XT group, and the obvious thing is it takes all of that development work they did with XTR that was launched last year and trickles it down to the two next level groups. So we're going to start with XT and talk about basically what's different and what's new with this group compared to XTR, but honestly, it's very, very similar. All of the technologies carry forward. Hyperglide Plus carries forward. The crank arm should look very, very familiar. This is the MT900 that was kind of like just rolled out as a stopgap to get the XTR groups out on bikes when they didn't have the cranks ready. So those cranks, the new XTR cranks, should be shipping. That MT900 basically got the XT sticker that it always was going to have. And there's a little bit of things like the chainring and some changes to the cassette that are new for the XT group and that also trickled down for the SLX. So let's start with the cranks. The big difference with these cranks is these are a hollow forged design as opposed to the hollow bonded design. So it's not like a two-piece design bonded together like XTR. So these are going to be heavier, and we'll get to weights in a minute. We're going to also talk about the price differences between all the groups, so stick with it. Otherwise, functionally it's the same. It still uses the same direct mount design for the chain rings, but the chain rings themselves are different. So you can see here, it's a two-piece design. Instead of being a one-piece ultralight thing like you have on XTR, this is a two-piece thing with an aluminum carrier in the middle and a steel chain ring on the outside. And of course, the aluminum is lighter, the steel is more durable. And so this helps cut costs a little bit, again, adds a few grams over it. But what's interesting is it's designed to act like one piece even though it's two. So the chainring bolts on with two small screws on each of the Spyder's arms, but when you want to change chainring sizes, you don't unbolt the ring from the Spyder, you just replace the whole thing with the other one. So it's not meant to be taken apart and swapped chainring sizes. And they'll have, you know, all the normal chainring size options for XT and a few less options for SLX. Another interesting thing they did with the cranks was open up more options for people running regular boost or super boost. So the chain line options run from 52 millimeters to 55 to 56.5. So you still have the same crank arms on all of those, it's just a different spindle length that you'll end up getting. And they're not modular, so you will have to buy at least a new drive side crank arm if you wanted to change, you know, if you wanted to put it on a different bike with a different spacing. So the reason they're offering two different options with two different Q factors for even for just regular boost bikes is because for cross-country bikes, you might still have a slimmer profile here and you want the narrowest Q factor possible, and clearance isn't so much of an issue. When you start getting out to burlier trail bikes that are still running boost, then you want just a couple extra millimeters of clearance, and so they have a crank arm for that as well. And then of course Super Boost pushes things out really wide to work with plus tires, and you definitely need more clearance for that. So this is pretty cool. They've got an XT crank arm to fit all modern bikes, everything from cross country all the way up through like full-on enduro with Super Boost spacing. So as we move back, you know, the chain is what's connecting those, so let's talk about that for a second. There will be different level chains for XTR, XT, and SLX. The main difference is material finishes, so they're all metal, obviously, all steel, but with XTR you get the highest end finishes and coatings and all that on them, and hollow pins, which they say is actually stronger than the solid pins that you get on XT. And then when you drop down to SLX, those are also solid pins with a little bit less of the extra fancy surface treatments. All of them are great, it's just that you start getting to less and less friction as you go up. Okay, let's talk about the cassette. So all of the new cassettes are 12 speed. They're all coming with the options of both a 1051 or a 1045. And that's kind of one of the things that Shimano wanted to do, is give you options to set the gearing up the way you wanted. The key difference in the cassettes are with XTR, the black chain rings at the top are alloy, and then you drop into titanium with them and then steel. Here you get two rings in alloy on XT, and those are the black ones, and then the rest of it's a steel set of cogs running all the way down. They all use that same beam construction on the back end. And then when you get to SLX, you get one alloy chain ring and then the rest are steel. So it's just small improvements. All of the alloy ones get a special coating to help improve lifespan. Those are the big differences in the cassettes when you drop from XT to SLX. Up front, the XT shifters are very similar to XTR with a couple of small differences. The thumb pad is just a little bit larger because it's not designed to be as much of a pure race product as XTR is. So there's a little bit more there for a bigger contact patch when you're rumbling around on the big trails and rough terrain. The little rubbery thumb pad is there as well, only it's not replaceable like it is on XTR. XT also keeps the double shift release, which means you can drop 2 gears harder at once, and it gets the multi-shift to crush like 4 or 5 gears on downshift to an easier gear. The shift pod itself has 14 millimeters of lateral adjustment and 20 degrees of rotational adjustment around the bar, so you can really find the optimum position. The brakes have both 2 and 4 piston options, but regardless of which caliper you choose, they're actually running the same lever up front. And that's a departure from XTR, where you have the super streamlined, minimal adjustment race lever, and then you got the more full-featured enduro lever. And of course, those are designed to pair with either the 2 or the 4 pistons. Here with XT, you have one lever that does have reach adjust and free stroke adjust, and it'll work with both the 2 and 4 piston calipers. They also kept the new support tab, so the band clamp is a little bit wider, and then it gets the little support tab to keep the brake levers from flexing in when you're braking really, really hard. That was something they improved from prior generations where they had streamlined it and got it so small that people ended up getting a little bit of flex when they were trying to brake really, really hard. Down at the caliper, you'll have your choice of brake pads with either finned or non-finned, resin or metal. They will all ship with finned pads, and the rotors for XT now come with both IceTech and Frieza. So the key difference here is the Frieza section, which is that exposed aluminum fin on the inside part of the braking surface, is just exposed aluminum. It doesn't get the additional heat dissipating paint of XTR. They say with all of the technologies, that sandwich steel alloy, steel construction of IceTech, and then the Frieza extensions, you are basically getting the effect of a rotor 1 or 2 sizes larger than what is actually on your bike. So let's move on to SLX. The cranks get a little bit less finishing, and they're just shaped a little bit different, a little bit burlier. The chainring loses some of the surface treatment, but otherwise is mechanically the same. It's still a 2-piece construction and it's still a direct mount thing. Up at the shifters, they are way simpler. You get no multi-shift and no instant release, which the instant release is interesting. So with XT and XTR, as soon as you push the trigger, it releases the cable to drop to a harder gear. With SLX, you have to let go of the trigger before it will release the cable. And so some riders actually like that. If you want a little bit more control over when exactly that shift to a harder gear happens, then the SLX shifter might be for you. The brakes are very similar, the same deal, 2 and 4 piston options, and this is actually the first time they've had a 4 piston option for the SLX group. The main difference is at the lever, where there's no free stroke adjustment like there is on XT. At the Cassette, like I mentioned, you get one less aluminum cog, so there's more steel, but it's the same 1051 and 1045 options. So while we're talking about cassettes, let's talk about how they shift. When Shimano introduced Hyperglide, it was a series of ramps that would help the chain go up the cassette to an easier gear. With XTR, they introduced Hyperglide Plus, and that added a series of ramps that would help it drop back down more smoothly as well. So what it would do is, as soon as it would shift, it would really help the chain move more smoothly to the next smaller cog and maintain as much chain wrap as it could, so that there was never a chance of it really losing a little gap between shifts. So instead of sprinting, all of a sudden it's like that hard chunk, this is less of a chunk when you're going to a harder gear. Here we're showing you the 1051 cassette, and we're going to go up the cassette 1 cog at a time and then come back down 1 cog at a time, and then we're going to go up really, really fast and really, really fast the other way. In this bit, we captured a shift to a harder gear in slow motion. And so what I want you to watch is how the chain drops very smoothly to that harder gear and maintains full wrap on as much of the cassette as possible as it's going. So in practice out on the trail, riding along, it's super smooth no matter which way you're shifting, and it's really impressive. You know, Shimano is known for their light touch shifting effort, and here it's about as light as you would want on a mountain bike. You know, from a mechanical system, this gives you enough tactile feel that you know when it's shifting and you can feel the clicks, but it's super easy to do even when you're super tired after a long day of riding. Okay, last up, the two things I know everybody wants to know is weight differences and price differences. And I've got my little cheat sheet because there's no way I was gonna remember all these numbers. So starting with SLX, you can get a complete group without hubs. So there are new hubs as well, and we'll talk about those in the post on Bike Rumor. So a complete group of crankset, chainring, chain, cassette, rear derailleur, shifter, and brakes with 4-piston brakes. And when we're talking about the weights and everything, we're talking about 32-2 chainring and 175mm arms. So SLX comes in at $806 for the group, US, and a group weight of 3,056 grams. When you move to XT, you add $327 and you lose 229 grams. So XT comes in at $1,133 and 2,827 grams for the group. And then that compares to XTR, of course, XTR being the lightest one. So that group comes in with 2,432 grams and $2,075. And that is all four of those. That's with the 4-piston brakes and 180mm rotors. So we'll have all of the weights and everything, full breakdown of pricing and all the features on bikerumor.com. Check that out. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.